And hello everyone, welcome back to another Bootstrap tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be taking a look at forms. So let's get started. I am just going to clean up a bit. Here we go. So let's create a form. And the action, we don't need an action because we're not really going to be using this form. And in here we can just style it a little bit. So we can create a div with the class of margin bottom free and then margin top free. So we'll give it a nice margin. And then here we can just add a button with the class name of btn primary, and just submit. Okay. Now in here we can actually put all of our things we might want in a form. For example, we can have a label with the class of form label, and that just contains email. And we can use it for email. Then we can have an input with the class name of form control and an ID of email and a type of email. And you can set the type is email. Now already you'll see this actually looks pretty good, except for the fact that it stretches the entire screen, but already it looks pretty decent. Like, this is much better than the default input you usually have. Let's create another div with a margin bottom of free. And we can create another div that says form check and margin bottom free. Then this first div, we can do the same as what we did here for email, but now it can be for a password. And take note, if you're not comfortable with HTML yet, this for here is referencing this ID here. So if we were to change this to SSS, we'll need to change this to SSS. This just means if you click on the label, then it will automatically put the cursor on this input field. And in here we could just add a checkbox. So we can say form check label, and this can actually be a label. And inside of here we can have an input of checkbox with the class name of form check input. So yet again, it's just form what you need. In this case, you want a checkbox, a form check, and then what you want. In this case, you want a label for that checkbox, and we want an input for that checkbox. Here we go, and we can just not have a for in this case. Don't need a name, and we don't really need an ID either. And in here, we can of course just say remember. Now, this is provided by Bootstrap. This design here is automatically provided by Bootstrap, which is amazing because it already looks very good and it works amazing out of the box. If we were to go here and just say class is equal to container fluid, then we'll have a nice border, a nice padding. And then what we could do here is we could say we have a div with the name row. And now if we were to move all of this into this row div, and we were to give each of these divs the class of column, then now it's in one line. So if you want to do an inline sort of thing, you can. In this case, it doesn't look very nice because we didn't really put a lot of effort into this. You can also change the sizes of these inputs. For example, let's rather have another input here, and this one can be username. And then you can resize it to whichever size you need. So here we could say form control, and then form control, and in the size you want, such as SM or LG. So this one will be LG, the regular size, which is like MD, and then the smaller size, which is SM. If we take a look at it, you'll notice they shrink considerably as you move. It's up to you which you prefer. Let's talk about a few components you can use inside of this. So let's say you want a select. Now generally you'd have an option and we just say times 3. That should work fine. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. If we were to view this, you'll have a nice little ugly drop down here. However, if you use Bootstrap, then you have the option to say select with the class of form select. And now it's a nice select. As you can see, it just looks better in general. And there, I think that's much easier to read. So now I can actually see how it looks. Sometimes you want boxes you can check. Not like a checkbox, but something more like a switch. To do that, we can have a class or a div with the class of form check form switch with an input of type checkbox and a class name of form check input, and the label, the class of form check label. And here you could say send emails. So let's say you allow your users to turn emails on or off, so you'll send them like marketing emails. This is a great way you can use this. And then we can just go here and say by default it can be checked. And you just say value is equal to yes. And we can give it an ID of xxx. And in here we can just say for, and we just specify xxx. You could put whatever ID you want in there. I'd rather skip through that part. And here you go. And of course, add dark background with dark text. Not very smart. Here we go. Send emails. Click on it. You can see very nice animation to turn it on and off. You can also have a very good looking range. So let's say we have an input, and this is just of type range. Now by default, the range in HTML lacks a little bit beauty. But in Bootstrap, it looks pretty good. So this is a good class. And can you guess what this will be called? Form range. Just with everything Bootstrap, it follows a basic rule set in a sense. We know this goes on a form, and we want a range that goes on that form. As you can see, here we have a nice looking range. That's very interactive when you touch it. You can also have input groups. So if we were to go here, we can just say dot input group, and you just create a span with the class name of input group text. You put an @ symbol, and here we can create an input with a class of form control and a placeholder for, let's say, their username. Then we'll take a look here. Now it's an @ symbol by default on the front, and you can put someone's username here. If you want it to be at the back instead, then you could go here and we can just move this downward. So it's before the input and then after the input now at gmail.com. And now we can just say email. And now here we can say mark, and this will be mark at gmail.com. And you're not limited to only having one. You could do something like this. So you could, let's say you have a domain. So you can say get pizza dot, and then now if they create an email, it would be get pizza dot, let's say mark at gmail.com. You're not limited at all. You can even have one more here, and here we could say dot pizza saga, and now it will be get pizza dot satsa dot pizza saga at gmail.com. Very weird email, but that is possible. You could even put a checkbox in here. It doesn't need to be text specifically. And now if we go here, and this can just be some sort of text such as include this. And then now include this, and you can check this checkbox, and then you can like type something in here, I guess. And that could also be button. It doesn't need to be a checkbox or just text. It can be whatever you want, you can put in there. And that is the basics of forms in Bootstrap. There's quite a lot of things you can do with it. Bootstrap has put a lot of effort into forms. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next Bootstrap tutorial.